I'm calling this meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. And as always, if everyone on the call can make sure to turn on their cameras and make sure they're muted, that way we can go ahead and get started. All right, so as the first item on our agenda, we'll go ahead and do roll call. So I'll hand it over to Ben. When you hear your name, just please unmute and respond here. That way we can take note of your attendance.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Pulido. Commissioner Green. Commissioner Dillamanikit. Commissioner Nieto.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Wolf. Commissioner Dernbach.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Gudekunst.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Perry. Commissioner Soto Lopez. Commissioner Paula. Commissioner Duong. Commissioner Frenner.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Levico. Commissioner Gallegos Munoz.
Present.
Commissioner Rendon.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Adan.
Present.
Commissioner Gomez. Thank you, Evelyn. And I think that was everyone. All right, that concludes. David is trying to get in. Looks like I'm having some issues with admitting folks, so let me just make sure folks have the right access. But that concludes roll call, Chair.
Thank you, Ben. All right, so before we kind of get into our regular agenda, I'm super excited to have District 7 Council Member Raul Campillo with us. Council Member Campillo has been serving on City Council, representing District 7 since 2020. He's a Harvard Law grad and has practiced law investigating white-collar crimes, and he's also served in San Diego's District Attorney Office, working on juvenile diversion programs for addicted youth, and also gun violence programs and efforts of keeping the city safe. Council member Campillo has devoted a lot of time into building a thriving community on the basis of spreading compassion within one another. He's also a strong believer in youth empowerment, which is awesome, and is a really active advocate of environmental justice. And he has worked really hard to protect San Diego's natural resources. He also serves as the vice chair on both the transportation and the public safety committees. So we're super fortunate to have the support of Councilmember Campillo today. So it's a pleasure and honor to introduce Councilmember Campillo and welcome him for his remarks. So with that, I'll hand it over.
Thank you, Anusha. I really appreciate it. Can you hear me clearly?
Yep, we can hear you perfectly.
Fantastic. Great. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you, honorable commissioners. My name is Raul Campillo, and I have the privilege of serving as the District 7 council member for the city of San Diego. That includes the neighborhoods all the way from basically the 5 freeway, Linda Vista and Mission Valley on the far west. And when you move further east, that includes Serra Mesa, Grantville, Allied Gardens, Del Cerro, Tierra Santa, Serra Mesa, and I have the portion of Mission Valley that's north of Friars Road. The people that I recommended and was very glad that Mayor Gloria appointed. It's good to see you as well. Just so everyone knows, I'm a former 5th grade teacher, and it's, children and youth, their welfare really mattered to me. And so it's really great to see that the mayor's reestablished the city's youth commission, and ultimately trying to make sure that we have your voices, input in city priorities, city policies. One thing that I really advocated for as we just passed the first reading of the Commission on Police Practices is to make sure we have youth seats. So in every single way possible, and making sure that the youth can have their impact really felt throughout the city. Just going to use a few of my moments here at the early part of my introduction here to talk a little bit about the city's budget process. I'm sure you've all heard a little bit about it, or maybe even a lot about it at this point, but essentially the fiscal year for the city runs from June 30th, from July 1st all the way to the following June 30th. So when we pass a budget in June, essentially June 1st is the first day it starts, and it goes all the way till the end of the next June. And that's the way we keep track of our finances. And the mayor releases his plan in April as required by the charter. And so that includes all sorts of things, but particularly I'm going to spend a little bit of time today talking about the priorities that I've seen and that which particularly affect youth. Things like what parks we need to improve, how we're going to incorporate climate action plan goals into all the different aspects of the budget, and not just on things that are traditionally thought of as climate action. Also making sure to see how long, what hours and how well staffed we can keep our libraries open. Those are some very important priorities to me. And of course, the mayor, he hears from the council members on our priorities when we release our budget priority memos. The independent budget analyst distills all of those into one report about what we see in a consensus around. And then the mayor publishes his first version of the budget in April, usually around April 15th. The council members read it, we advocate for it, we hear from the different department heads on what they want to see and what they need, particularly around staffing, which is something our city really needs a lot more of. It's well understood that we are understaffed on so many different departments, and it takes years to get there. But I'm glad to say that the city council and the mayor both have taken big steps together to make sure we can have as many employees to deliver on those things like I talked about earlier with parks, climate action, and libraries across the board as well. And so the big thing is that the council gets together and advocates as a body throughout that, not against the mayor at all, but really to say, where can we find those extra dollars through cutting a little bit here, adding a little bit here, so that we ultimately see the budget as a whole. Last year, there was the mayor took so many of our suggestions, put them in at the beginning, and then there was only a few more things that we had to advocate after the fact. One of those things was the Office of Child and Youth Success, and it's something that I advocated for very strongly, together with Ben's council member, Council President Elo Rivera. And so we were able to put that in, and now we are about to hear soon, I believe, that the mayor is about to hopefully make a decision on who that executive director will be. I see Oscar dropped in Youth Will. Youth Will was one of those longtime advocates in the community for that. Of course, Council President Elo Rivera has a really close relationship with Youth Will, of course. And so we appreciate them. Mid-City Can, the YMCA, Chicano Federation, all sorts of organizations were there to help us advocate for that. And we're really glad that the mayor accepted that in the final version of the budget that the council passed. The new Office of Child and Youth Success, that executive director is going to be charged with creating an overall vision of how youth will be empowered and how all the different programs will come to the forefront across many departments, so that that children and young adults are listened to, integrated, their ideas integrated into the budget. And then we're also going to be emphasizing childcare programs so that parents who are struggling to find childcare slots for their children will be able to have a central core coordination center where they'll be able to hopefully find that service. And Sophie Barnhorst from my staff, she is my committee consultant for economic development. That's one of the big things we've been pushing for. I'm the chair of the City Council's Economic Development and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. We've been working in tandem with organizations like like United Domestic Workers, a union that has actually organized child care providers. We've been working together with the YMCA. We've been working together with things like organizations like KinderCare that are well known across the country for providing those types of services, so that we can see how we can deliver more of those slots for the city of San Diego as a whole. So I really view creating more childcare spots as a workforce development issue, because so many parents either have to take time away from work, or they have to pay out of pocket thousands of dollars a month, sometimes as much as a rent or mortgage payment each month, to try to find that childcare slot for their children. And so it really is about emphasizing helping families find that, and ultimately the programming for young people as well in childcare, so that they can learn and thrive in those environments. It's just one of the many steps that we've worked on very hard, and I think we've made some good progress in this first year, but we have big goals set for the second year. I mentioned staffing earlier. The city has over 11,000 employees, so the city is a major employer that can really lead in this space, and we haven't done it before, but thankfully with the council president's help and with the mayor's help, we are really leading the way in a way that hasn't been done before, and we're trying to transform the conversation and the narrative so that we can really empower youth and take care of families who have children. I'll leave some time for Q&A, so I'll stop there, but it's been great to chat with all of you, and I'm happy to take any questions if we have time for that.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for talking to us. I'd love to open up for questions if any of our commissioners would have any. I know Oscar's already raising his hand, but truly, we really appreciate your efforts. I know you mentioned about creating those youth seats on the Commission for Police Practices. That's certainly something that we as a youth commissioner are also striving to do, kind of having the representation of the youth voice in the various the city departments and city commissions. So we're really glad that you're pioneering that effort through your position. So we're really super thankful, and really all your efforts have been so focused on youth empowerment, even with like the childcare propositions and stuff. So we're again super thankful for keeping the youth perspective in mind when you're making decisions at the city level. So
I'll say I am the youngest council member, so maybe it's just an age proximity thing.
All right, I'll open it up to the commissioners. I know Oscar was raising his hand, so Commissioner Oscar, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair Anusha, and thank you as well, Councilmember Raul Campillo, for being here with us. I actually have two questions. My first question being, as far as the youth seats and the youth that you're looking to serve in that capacity, I was wondering if you were taking into consideration having youth who have been either in juvenile hall or system impacted to serve in those seats, or are you looking for more a college student, high school student, someone who can actually, I guess, learn from the commission? Mostly because I want to know what kind of youth you would like to gain perspective on when you're having conversations in regards to police practices. And secondly, as well as learning about how the city has provided jobs for youth, do you guys have on the city's website job applications in particular, or have you guys provided funding to nonprofit organizations to provide jobs?
Excellent questions, Commissioner Rendon. I will say first, let's tackle the first question, youth seats on the CPP. Absolutely. What's interesting about the way you framed your question, part of what we built into the descriptors of the experiences of commissioners for the CPP who have we are looking for, and typically it's between the age of and lived experience.
Oh, your audio kind of broke off a little bit. I was just wondering if you could
I'll start
maybe-
over. Yeah. Is,
Or
is
just a
my
little- yeah, thank you, thank you.
is my internet connection unstable? Is that what's wrong?
Maybe it was just a little bit choppy in that little area. So.
Let me do this. I'm gonna turn off my camera so that at least my voice comes through clear. Thank you, Commissioner Rendon. Yeah, so the lived experience is one of the enumerated factors that we're looking for in CPP commissioners. For youth, it's going to be for folks between 18 and 24. And while we don't specifically call out individuals who have been in juvenile detention or involved in the juvenile criminal justice system, fundamentally, that is one type of lived experience that I think would bring value to the CPP. It's not going to be there is an age restriction, so it's not going to be young teenagers, but it will definitely be people in their early adulthood. The second thing I'd say is, you talked about jobs for youth on the city website. This is actually one of the things we want the Office of Child and Youth Success to streamline for us, so that young people and their parents will know, oh, this is where you go and click and where you submit an application for an internship with Parks and Recreation, internship or a job application with any number of positions. I remember there being later high school students and early college students who worked in the city attorney's office where I used to work, working on legal issues. So I think you're right in basically pointing out that the city website could be more helpful, and that's why the Office of Child and Youth Success is going to be important. But I will say, when it comes to delivering money for nonprofits, the mayor just yesterday, I was standing right behind him while he announced it, that we gave out millions upon millions of more dollars for small business grants and nonprofits, so that nonprofits can continue to hire people. I'm sure some of those job openings are for youth, because nonprofits tend to have much more of a socially directed mission. And so I would say that we are doing what we can to help those types of organizations that help youth in their with their economic needs. And I'm really proud to stand behind Mayor Gloria as we announced those grants yesterday.
Thank you. Does any other commissioner? Sorry, I don't see the hands raised in my view right now. Does any other commissioner have any questions?
I see Maria does.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Maria.
Hello, thank you for speaking with us. I just wanted to ask for the, speaking on the council website being a little easier to find. I know that a lot of high school students and college students kind of find it difficult to find those starting internships and jobs, and what jobs are reliable, what internships are reliable. Are you guys making a place that is easy to access for young students and adults who aren't sure where to go and where to start, that's reliable? Or is this more for, possibly parents or those young adults who already have a little bit of history and knowledge? Or is this something that you're trying to make accessible for anyone of any skill set and knowledge?
Absolutely. It's something that we are trying to improve upon. I know that I've had conversations with our IT department about how we can make this much more searchable or filterable, so that folks can go and say, oh, is this a job that would particularly apply to me? So that we can have, particular job titles or descriptions tagged with a particular enumerator that would be specifically for youth or young adult. It takes a lot of time to actually do the back end programming on that sort of thing, but we've absolutely had those conversations because we know that people are excited to work for the city of San Diego and want to have their first opportunity, maybe their first job or second job or a part-time job while they're a student, making sure that they can work for an organization and be involved in public service like all of you are as commissioners. So we've had those conversations. It just fundamentally takes a lot of time to get done. It's unfortunate. Part of the hard part of governing is that we have a big backlog of items that we are struggling to get through, mostly because past decisions by past leaders in our city were not focused on those sorts of things. Upgrades to technology to make things simpler. I think everybody here probably knows how to use technology better than I do, and could probably give us some ideas. But I think that if the Youth Commission pointed out where you want to see those particular efforts focused, that's something that we could prioritize in our own city committees and emphasize with department directors. If you create a list of 3, 4, 5 things that you think really need to be improved on our city website, I'd be happy to take them and really go advocate for them with you and on your behalf.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I actually had one question as well. So I think one of the things that would really help the commission in facilitating the kind of operations and work that we want to do is kind of having a budget, right? I think that would really help, kind of expand the possibilities that the commission can do, whether we are creating programs or offering scholarships to youth, whatever it is. I was wondering if that is something that is possible to advocate for, um, through council members like yourself. Is that something that can be done?
Sure. So I think the way to think through that particular type of involvement, that's almost bordering on participatory budgeting. Some cities have community commissions, community organizations that during a meeting put forth what they want to see money spent on, and there's typically an agreement between, or maybe not an agreement, but an understanding with the city councils or the city commissions, county councils, wherever they use that across the country to actually implement that spending. I think that is we are limited in the ability to do that by the city charter. Typically, and I'd say that frustratingly, most things that go into the budget are merely through pure advocacy, and then it's ultimately left up to the council members. I can definitely see how, and many of you, I'm sure, have worked with different advocacy groups. Obviously, I mean, about Youth Will, it was mentioned earlier. You get to advocate, you get to push. There's ultimately no guarantees. I would say that from my experience as a city attorney, the city charter limits the ability of that, but there's no reason that can't be changed, that the city charter can't be changed. The voters have to change that, but the voters, ultimately could see the wisdom in having, a portion of the budget set aside for recommendations from the Youth Commission to say, this is what we would like to see the money spent on. It's an arduous process. It's an expensive process of its own. But I think there's some definitely wisdom in that. I hate to always say, but the city charter is pretty limiting in what we're able to do and how far we're able to go in some of the policies we'd like to see.
Thank you. Commissioner Rendon, do you have another question, or is that just raised from?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just that the power went out of my house randomly and my computer kind of shut down. So I had to tune in on my cell phone. I will try to jump back on my computer shortly. The question that I had in particular was in regards to youth serving on boards and commission, what would be the process and how do you feel about youth board members, whether it's an advisory member, being paid, mostly because I know that there are some advocacy groups that are interested in advocating for youth to be paid to be on the city border commission. And I'm not sure if there has to be an electoral process for that to come out of the city budget. And also because of the time that it takes for youth to organize and to be a part of these meetings, and the city mentioning that it's important to get youth with paid experiences, do you believe other council members would be willing to support youth being paid to serve on boards and commissions?
I appreciate that question, absolutely, because you're giving up your volunteer time when you could otherwise be making money to support yourself and your families. But I hate to say it again, but that goes straight back to the city charter, which essentially limits who can be paid out of the city budget. Fundamentally, it's employees only, and that's why basically every single board and commission is a volunteer position, and the only thing that gets paid is your reasonable expenses, travel expenses, maybe technology that you might need, things like that. So that is that our hands are bound by the city charter on that at this point. As it relates to actually just getting on the boards themselves, I don't think there's any restriction on youth being nominated and appointed to boards, as long as they meet the other requirements that might be necessary for appointment to particular boards. You know, like sometimes there's a board like, for example, the Housing Commission. Several spots are reserved for people who have experienced housing instability. There's no reason that one of those couldn't be a youth or a young adult, anything like that. So I think that it is important for us to facilitate those appointments, and I really do think that you ought to use the openings that are identified on our city boards and commissions website, which I think you're going to hear about in a little bit as soon as I'm done, to find those spots where you fit into the district that has an opening on something. And I'll tell you, no board or commission is boring. You know, the Urban Forestry Commission talks about all the trees and landscaping that's going on throughout our city, which is really important for our climate action plan, really important for species, all sorts of things. I would say that the reason I bring that one up is because there's so much advocacy for the Urban Forestry Board. It's like amazing how much they speak. So I call that one out because it's been on the top of my mind a lot as I think about the budget. A lot of these trees are being attacked by beetles, and we need to invest money in that. But there's no reason a youth couldn't be on that board and commission. I would say go use that website, figure out where those openings are, and if you fit the qualification based on geography or by experience, we should apply for those. And just call up your council member and just say, hey, I want to be on this board. And that's going to get the council member's attention more than anything, is when you call and advocate for yourself.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Campillo, for joining us today and for answering all our questions. We really do appreciate it. We're just gonna we have to go on to our next item, just in the interest of time. But
of course, no, thank you so much for having me. And if anyone has any further questions, please, Raul Campillo at sandiego.gov, reach out. I'm happy to take another meeting. If you guys have a subcommittee that wants to advocate for a particular issue or as a whole, let me know. And I really I absolutely respect your time. If we need to work on weekends or on the evenings, I'm happy to take meetings then. I know you're all very busy and you have to take care of yourselves and your families and all your priorities. So thank you for giving me the space to speak with you all today. And, you know, I appreciate that you are all highly qualified and excellent advocates for our city's youth. So just know I have a lot of respect for you guys. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we have one more special announcement before we move on to our regular business. So actually I have an important announcement to make about our Director Gordon, the Director of Boards and Commissions. He's played a very active role working closely with the mayor to reinstate the Youth Commission. So the fact that we have this opportunity and this platform is a lot of that credit goes to him. So I want to hand it over to Stephanie to add some more important announcements and updates with regards to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair Karyala. Hello, Youth Commissioner Singh. Yes, so as Chair Karyala said, Matthew Gordon has taken another position to be an executive director for the Blue Heart Foundation, advocating for part of his passion, but I'm happy to turn it over to my colleague and friend, our new director of boards and commissions, appointments, boards and commissions, Chida Warren Darby.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate it. It's so good to see all of you. I've seen some of you in another capacity. I was the Deputy Director of Communications up until a couple of weeks ago. So now I'm over here in this seat, and I'm really excited to be able to attend your meeting this tonight and to be able to work with you. So I'm going to leave my email in the chat. I know that Oscar raised a question about applying for seats on boards and commissions, and I really would love for all of you to be able to visit our website. Matthew Gordon did an amazing job spearheading the overhaul of our boards and commissions website. So it's user friendly. You're able to see the vacancies on there, district appointment, qualifications and things like that. And there are some youth seats on some other boards and commissions. We have about 47. And so I encourage you to look through there. If you have questions, feel free to email me. This is day 2 on the job for me. So I have a lot of things I'm diving into to get acclimated, but I will be attending your meetings. I would love to stay informed and just to make sure we're meeting your needs here in the mayor's office, and just here to address any questions or concerns that you have. So thank you. It's good to see all of you.
Sheeta, first of all, congratulations on taking on this responsibility, and we're super excited to come and work with you. I'm sure all our commissioners are on board with that as well. So
thank you. If you guys have any questions for me, let me know. I won't be able to stay the whole meeting, but I definitely will be attending your future ones. But if you have any questions for me, I'm glad to try to answer them as best as I can.
Yes, Commissioner Rendon. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm not on my camera right now because it's kind of dark in my house, but I am super pleased to be able to meet you today. And I wanted to ask particularly what interested you in working with the city of San Diego and what the interview process was like for you.
Oh, that's a great question. I have a background in media. I'm a second generation Black newspaper publisher. And so I was kind of headhunted, if you will. Mayor Gloria is very intentional about ensuring that we have a diverse administration. And so my interview process, because we had a whole new crew come in when he came into office, it really consisted of just seeing what my visions and goals were for the city if I were to serve in this capacity in the office. I came in understanding that I would do communications, but I have a vast background in a lot of other things. And so transitioning into this space was really easy for me. I'm also a mom of an 11 and 14-year-old. And so love working with young people. I used to be a Girl Scout troop leader and volunteered in youth ministry at church and things like that. And so youth really keep me young and forgetting that I'm getting older. So, but I love the energy. I've been able to watch you guys over the last few months. I know we were trying to get an event off the ground at USD, the youth town hall. And so that was something I was really advocating for because I understand the significance of needing to be heard. In high school, I served in ASB. I was the commissioner of activities and just did a lot to stay involved and connected. And I think even in elementary, I think I started a Save the Earth club, and we would go around picking up trash and, messing with kids in the lunch arbor about their litter. So I just love public service. And like I said, to be able to work with young people. So hopefully that answers your question.
Kind of along the same lines, what do you see as the short-term and long-term priorities for boards and commissions kind of coming in with a fresh perspective?
Yeah, I really just want to make sure I'm building on the amazing foundation that Matthew laid. Considering where we were a couple of years ago when this office was created, we've come really far, but I want to keep diversifying our boards and seats. And the biggest thing I'm finding is just letting people know what we do. A lot of people in the general public aren't really aware. And sometimes when they hear the boards and commissions term, they just feel like it's something that they can't be a part of. So I really want to focus on educating people and showing them that they have a space, they have a seat at the table, and that their lived experience as a San Diegan matters in a lot of ways, probably more ways than they realize. So that's something I've really been pushing for in the last couple of days, especially making my announcement on social media. I've had a lot of people inboxing me, asking well, where can I serve? What do you do? What is this about? So that's really exciting to know that people want to serve. They just need to know what opportunities exist. So it's really about branding and kind of marketing. I think that marketing and media side of my profession is coming in and being able to make sure we're just being clear. I love doing TikToks and all those great things. I did one for the mayor for State of the City. It's really fun. So I hope to just be creative in the way we're communicating what's happening and telling what's going on with each board and commission so that people can get involved.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think that very much aligns with the goals of the commission, of the youth commission as well, in terms of we want to increase that youth civic engagement, right? Make sure that youth are more involved in this process. And I'm sure with your help, we can continue exploring ways to do that and continue developing that. So thank you so much for joining us today, Cheetah. And again,
Absolutely.
we're very excited to continue working with you.
Thank you. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. It's never a bother. Don't ever feel like you're bugging me. So it's not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So now we'll proceed to our second item on our agenda. So this is non-agenda public comment. Again, I'll hand it over to Ben to proceed with public comment.
Thank you, Chair. Let's see. So we'll now, if you are a member of the public and interested in commenting, please raise your hand by either tapping the raise your hand button on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, or by dialing *9 on your phone. You'll be taken in the order in which you raise your hands. When we indicate it is your turn to speak, click the unmute prompt that will appear on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, or dial *6 on your phone. The public comment period is now open. Okay, with that, I see no hands, so I'm going to hand it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Ben. So we will now move on to the approval of minutes from our last month's meeting on February 2nd. The meeting minutes can be found on our website, but Ben can also post it in the chat if you guys just need to revise it and refresh what was on there. So I'll just give a minute or so just for you guys to look over it. So yeah. All right, just for the interest of time, is there a motion to approve the previous minutes? Just please raise your hand on the Zoom application. That way I can call you. I see your hand, Dax. But... All right. Okay, Commissioner Rendon, go ahead.
I would like to motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Rendon. Is there a second? Yes, Commissioner Dax.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So are there any questions or discussion on the minutes as published? Yes, Commissioner O'Donnell.
Just a minor comment. On my name for roll call, there's an E at the end of my first name. Yeah.
I'll get that updated.
No problem.
All right. So we'll now go ahead and vote. Oh. Yes, Commissioner Rendon.
I motion to approve the minutes with the amendment of correcting Fartoon's last name and taking off the E, please.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Rendon. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Azush. The motion passes. So now we'll proceed to the vote. So all in favor of approving the minutes as published with the amendment, please raise your hand on the Zoom application, and then please take a tally of the vote.
Motion passes. Thank you all for voting.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you, commissioners. All right. So once again, thank you everyone for joining today's meeting. We have two informational items on the agenda today. The first one is a briefing on youth homelessness by Mr. David Baker. He's the systems director at YMCA Youth and Family Services. The second item will be a training module on the Brown Act. So with that said, we're super fortunate to have Mr. Baker present before our commission. David Baker is, as I said, the youth systems director for the YMCA, and his job is to ensure that youth in the transitional age and services related to those youth in the San Diego County are effective, equitable, and most importantly, accessible to them. So he plays an active role in engaging the various stakeholders within our community, everyone from like service providers to people experiencing poverty to community members, right, to collect information that can be used to create those systemic level changes that we all want. So David's passion is in elevating youth voices in our community and ensuring that they always have a seat at the table when big decisions are being made. So once again, super happy that Mr. Baker was able to make it and present about youth homelessness. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to him.
Wow. Thank you so much for that introduction, Madam Chair. Goodness gracious, I need to update my LinkedIn. I'm just going word for word right there. I appreciate that. I'm super honored to be here, y'all. I mean, I see so many familiar names, which is cool. I saw some familiar faces. I think Commissioner Rendon, are you a part of the MTS IM City College rollout? I think I saw your image on the bus the other day, and it was really exciting. So I wish I could see you. I know you got your cam off, but I mean, so many influential people in this space. I mean, the names are buzzing. So I had to come on by, and I just really wanted to do a quick brief on the state of youth homelessness in San Diego County, and sort of almost get to know y'all and sort of your interests and where this group wants to go and where y'all want to engage. I know there's a ton of organizations across the county that would love to hear from you, and so I think this may be the start of this like feedback loop that I would love to incorporate this group in. And I think there's so many great minds here and perspectives to sort of vet a lot of the decisions that are being made for youth and young adults in San Diego County. So that's sort of a little bit of my mission, but I can tell y'all, just as a forewarning, I'm going to use a lot of acronyms, so let me know if I'm using too many acronyms. I don't want to serve you up acronym soup for dinner. So just let me know if I need to back it on up. But as mentioned, I kind of, with youth homelessness, I'm sure everyone, homelessness is a buzzword in San Diego County, and it's a huge priority, and it's something that we want to combat. I like to think that we want to reach a functional zero, which means that you know, at any given time our system is fast enough to interrupt homelessness and ensure that it's non-recurring. I just kind of want to get a read of the room. How many folks here are familiar with homelessness and kind of youth homelessness and how it's separated from adult homelessness in San Diego? I know we got some. I know y'all sit on a lot of groups and meetings, so I don't want to bore you with details that you already know. I'm not seeing any hands. Well, I'll do a quick breakdown of how youth homelessness is addressed in San Diego. There's like this adult system, which when we think of traditional emergency shelters like Father Joe's and PATH, that's kind of the adult side of our homelessness response system. But there's also this really amazing youth system that targets transition-aged youth. We like to say 16 to 24-year-olds, right in that sweet spot when you're transitioning out into the world and sort of experiencing adulthood on your own for the first time. So some people do 18 plus, but we've been trying to take it back and work upstream a bit. So we're starting at 16, kind of high school age and those transformative years. And with our TAY, throw an acronym at y'all, Transition Age Youth TAY. So I don't want to get too lost in it, but with our Tay population, um, the needs are different, right? Young people who are experiencing homelessness, they may not have the experience of navigating the system. I mean, you're applying for apartments on your first time. It's a lot of our first times being without parents or without guidance or without a system to sort of direct where we're heading. And so we have a group of providers in San Diego that focus specifically on youth and ensure that youth are connected to self-sufficiency, if that makes sense. I like to think that our Tay providers or our youth providers are setting up the next wave of San Diego. And I like to think that I'm sitting with the next wave of San Diego. I see a whole lot of political power in here, a lot of commissioner talk. I watched your last Zoom gathering, and I was shocked at how well you like move these meetings along, and you've got your minute approval, and everything is official, and it was very refreshing to see a group of young people so passionate about delivering in that sort of way. So something, I mean, I'm so honored to be a part of this, and I think kind of going back to the way that young people are served or the way young people are viewed in San Diego County, we have an opportunity to change the future, right? We have an opportunity to look into the next steps of San Diego County. And so that's where a lot of this conversation is going to be situated. And I'll use the term youth and young adults, but again, it's like that 24 and younger, 25 and younger, just so that we can identify those particular needs and serve that population in a particular way. Cool. So we know about young people. We know that it's different. It's separate than the adult system. In 2019, we came together and we created a plan to address youth homelessness specifically. And it's called the CCP. There's another acronym coming at you, but it's the Coordinated Community Plan to End Youth Homelessness by 2024, right? So we created this 5-year plan. How many folks are familiar with 5-year plans? We got a lot of 5-year plans in here. I have a feeling this is like a planning group. Ben's got a 5-year plan. So we created this 5-year plan. And within this plan, we identified different populations, because we all know that someone who is coming from the foster system, they may need different services than someone who is being kicked out of their home for identifying as, being in the LGBT community, right? So we wanted to get specific. We wanted to remove the broad strokes of the system. I think that's a part of the change we're all trying to bring about. We want the people who need the services to get them at the level at which they need them, right? Because I think for so long, people who have experienced cycles of poverty have just been coupled together, and it sort of left a lot of gaps. So we put this plan together to address the gaps, and it is about 161 pages long, y'all. I mean, it is not user friendly. I'm gonna tell you, I've been reading this thing since 2019. I still haven't got through it. I'm not a quick reader. So we put together these snapshots, and the snapshots are made for individuals like yourself to be able to jump right into the plan and understand where we are without, going through a 5-year course, without it being like a dissertation. We wanted to make it more for the community. So I've got that snapshot. It's something that I will share, so everyone here will get their hands on it. I'm sure Ben might be able to help me out with that distribution, or Stephanie in the squad. So I'll be sure that makes it in front of you all. But I sort of wanted to introduce that plan because that plan is informing every bit of housing that we're creating for young people since 2019. I got a bunch of projects that I can identify that are made to address youth homelessness, but they all tie into that plan. So that's sort of the center of our focus. And within that plan, we identified youth feedback. So we established a group called the Youth Action Board. Has anybody ever heard of YAB through Regional Task Homelessness? A group that existed for a while, but then it sort of, I don't know the term, but it kind of came to an end because there were barriers. I think we heard about some of the barriers, paying young people. We wanted to make sure people were paid. We were doing a stipend system, and then we ran into taxes. You know how the government is. You can't earn any money without reporting it. Then that alters benefits such as CalFresh, Medi-Cal. Oh my gosh, it got messy, y'all. So we sort of drew back, and we wanted to be able to engage young people in a meaningful way that doesn't interrupt the other things they have going on in life. I think Council Member Campillo mentioned earlier that you all are volunteering your time right now, and we have to factor in opportunity cost. You know what I mean? Could be taking a valuable nap right now. It's about dinner time. I know my stomach's starting to rumble. So, we're making these sacrifices. And one thing that we want to do in our system is ensure that young people are compensated appropriately. They're earning livable wages, right? We talk about that. I just read an article that San Diego is the least affordable city in the United States when it comes to buying a house. I mean, goodness gracious, that was a part of my 5-year plan. It's out of there now. I'm committing to renting, like many of us, right? And so, being that we have these ambitious plans and we have these desires to, address youth homelessness and also elevate youth voices, I've kind of made it my personal mission to find the youth voices. Youth Will has been an amazing partner with elevating youth and young adults when it comes to kind of the city of San Diego, but we're trying to open this thing up for county-wide representation. But I think groups like this, and I gotta tell y'all, there's hardly any groups of young people that are meeting consistently and delivering this passion and this energy. So with this group, I mean, you've got Ben in here. You've got some amazing people that can elevate sort of the more logistical things that come along with working in this space. So I'm sure all of you are super committed to this work, but I just kind of want to give a little disclaimer that there are supports that exist from nonprofit organizations that can come in to support you as young people. So you all are commissioners, and just as a note, the wraparound support and some of the other things that you're sacrificing in order to be here can be addressed through nonprofits, if that makes sense. So I know that the city has some strict rules around compensation, etc., but just kind of want to drop that resource on y'all. So we've walked through this plan. I've introduced a bunch of random information, and I want to be sure that this group sort of understands my intention with kind of just making the connection. I don't necessarily have any like specific information that I wanted to leave here, other than y'all have a new resource when it comes to elevating your voices, and it's this guy right here. I sit in way too many meetings on a daily basis without young people, and so I've got a ton of opportunities for people to engage. There's a group called the San Diego Youth Homelessness Consortium. It's a group of it's a group of over 50 providers who work with young people, but there's a steering committee where there's no young people right now, right? And to us, that's a problem. So I'm kind of just want to drop that on y'all. The Regional Task Force on Homelessness is definitely looking for young people who want to engage in conversations around ending youth homelessness. So I kind of want to drop that on y'all. I'm coming with some opportunity and a bit of information, but to be honest, I would love if we could spend some time just with me kind of getting to know y'all. I see so many, I see a diverse picture, and I can only imagine that there's a ton of diversity behind the characters that you all are. So is it okay with y'all if we kind of, the youth homelessness stuff, we'll send that out. We'll get that supplemental information out, and we can spend some time kind of catching up on that system. But I'd love to ask y'all some questions and sort of hear some responses if we have the time. I don't want to go over our time, but how does that sound to the crew?
I think that is certainly possible if you can maybe allocate like about 10 minutes or so. That way, just for any questions and just discussions, that would be great.
Okay, cool. I appreciate that. So I've got about 8 areas of focus that I'm kind of trying to tackle right now: homelessness, employment, education, justice, all the good stuff. So I was curious, if I throw out an area of interest, can I get like maybe I don't know, a show of hands or some people to pop off the mic and let me know if they're interested in that area? And that way it'll help me sort of direct feedback in these channels when the time comes. Let's say there's a policy that comes up about Parks and Rec. If somebody in here is especially interested, then I'll know who to tap in with, just whether in this space or outside. So does that sound like a plan? Can I throw out some areas? You let me know if it sounded good. Okay. Who's interested in housing? I'm gonna be taking some notes, so you'll see me kind of popping up and down. I got okay. Oscar in the house. What's got some housing interests? Okay. I got another. Okay. Oh, let me see. Okay, I got some names. Make sure I write this down. How about
David, just one thing. So, because we do have a lot of commissioners who weren't able to make it to today's meeting. So, one thing that we could do is like if you could reach out to Ben with a list of topics that, like that you kind of want to focus on, and we can reach out to all the commissioners through email, and then they can indicate what areas that they're interested in. Because I'm sure if all of them were there, there's a lot of different areas that they would all love to hop in and engage with. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
Absolutely. Oh, the organization in the space. You see how efficiency. I love it. I love it. Um, okay, well, I think that list will definitely be coming. But in the meantime, is any of this making sense? Are there any questions about this sort of youth system? I sort of just want to introduce that youth system and the specifics. Oh, I see a hand.
Go ahead, Commissioner Randall.
Is it okay to speak? I'm sorry, I wasn't recognized yet.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair. I guess the question I had in particular was, once this list is sent out, I know that there has been conversations about needing more youth to serve on other boards and commissions, if not on community organization, maybe advisory boards, etc. What would that process look like? How long would it take for youth to be able to sit on those boards once they apply? What kind of information would they need to have at hand? If they would like to just send you their resume, etc., so that way you can get a better idea of what experiences a youth have, and that way it could streamline the kind of like the the need and filling the need of where the youth need to be, I guess you can say.
That's a wonderful question. Thank you so much for that, Commissioner Rendon. I would say, and this I have some specific answers, and then some that are going to be a little bit broader. So I get approached with opportunities 24/7. There are some opportunities that come to me where it's like, hey, I need an expert on this area or that area. So I think I love your suggestion, and I think a really good sort of way for me to get to know this group would be to send in a resume if possible, or sort of building that list where I know which folks are more interested in which areas. And then as far as a timeline goes, some opportunities that come to me are like, hey, in 3 weeks, I have X amount of dollars to pay a young person to speak, here or there. And then there are other times where opportunities come to me and it's like, hey, we really want a young person to join our board. In fact, Jerome's Furniture recently approached me and was like, "Hey, we're trying to bring a young person onto our board," and that's not a place where we would think like traditionally a board would be. So there's these different opportunities that come, and I sort of just take them kind of one at a time. I can say though, historically with nonprofit boards, I've seen it move relatively quickly based on their familiarity with working with young people, if that makes sense. So, like Regional Task Force on Homelessness, for example, that board is actively searching for youth and young adults who want to contribute to the fight against homelessness. And so I'm sure that would move as quickly as a week, with getting the application, etc. And then I've seen some other boards where it takes a little bit of time. So as much as I'd like to give one answer, it's sort of based on the opportunity. Makes sense.
Yes, Commissioner Jesus. Yeah, your hand raised. Yeah. Sure.
Good, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for speaking with us, David. This is something that's very important for us in the community. I have a couple of questions, so I'll just go one by one. So I don't, I'll go the other. Um, First off, can you provide us with like an outlook plan or the CCP or a statement of purpose so we can have that on hand?
Yes, absolutely. I'll ask for it to be distributed to the group, or I can drop it in the chat if that works.
Yes, either would work great. Thank you very much. Um, I know that you mentioned that you wanted to deviate a little bit from the CCP, but I actually had some questions about that, if that's fine with you. Yeah, okay, perfect. So regarding this plan, how are we looking on it? Is the city of San Diego going forward? Are we lagging? What is needed more specifically than anything? And I know that you mentioned that you have like this list of homelessness, employment, of things that you want to tackle, but holistically speaking, how is the city of San Diego doing?
Oh, I love that question. So sort of how are we doing? The plan has changed. I think with COVID coming in, it changed our complete purview of the issue. Um, in fact, in 2020 was the first time that our region acknowledged that transition age youth were the largest population of people experiencing homelessness for the first time. So we not only are we combating a kind of moving target with homelessness, we're also working to inform our region as a whole about these issues. So the city, for example, has done great work for youth because it's more of a kind of concentrated area. But in our county, kind of the county perspective, homelessness in the far north, where it's more rural, is a bit more challenging than in the city where it's more concentrated. So, we had to break it out in these regional approaches, and I can say that we're doing really good, but we're in a phase right now where we want to do an update. So that's why Youth Voice is like necessary. It's urgent that we bring young leaders in to help us inform this like CCP 2.0 kind of post quarantine CCP going on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that. Also a clarification, you work for the YMCA Youth and Family Services?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So, question regarding my District 8. There have been issues regarding youth homelessness increase in the area, specifically over here in Otay Mesa, San Isidro. I live in Otay Mesa near Montgomery Heights Middle School. There is a YMCA Border View that just opened, but because of its closure for the past 2 years, or 1 to 2 years, there has been increases in homelessness and lack of access to basic services to a lot of people in the community, including myself. What can be done in order to help the families in District 8, and what can we as youth commissioners do to help so this doesn't happen in the future again?
Commissioner Jesus, I think your volume, for at least, I'm not sure if it was only for me, but your volume kind of reduced in that last part. If you could just repeat yourself, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, is that better?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, okay, perfect. How can we work together so that problems like this don't happen in the future, and so we can ensure that there's not an increase in youth homelessness or like lack of access to basic needs, and not just with the YMCA, but as a holistic spectrum across District 8 and the city of San Diego?
Yeah. Impactful questions. So Borderview YMCA specifically. A lot of people view the YMCA as like a gym and swim, but we have this robust community support services department, which is where Youth and Family Services falls. So we actually converted Borderview into a community hub. So it no longer is it going to be a gym and swim. It's going to have some emergency shelter. It's going to have some. We've got a little bit of crisis intervention built in. There's going to be access to mental health resources because, I mean, just like you identified, we saw that especially in that particular area, that homelessness looks different. Culturally, it looks different. We're dealing with different family compositions. And that's sort of the YMCA. Just a little context about the YMCA. We got a new CEO this year, and he wants to shake up the way the YMCA's are sitting in communities because I'm sure all of you can think there's probably a YMCA in all of our communities, and so being that we're already there, let's use those facilities and turn them into something that's going to be for the entire community. And we're moving away from the kind of member model where, you know, you pay your membership, you get the YMCA. We want to open them up to everyone to come on in, and for those who need help, you know, be able to get that help. And another thing is, being that we do have these wonderful kind of pools and all these jazz, we've revamped our scholarship program. So individuals who may not have been able to afford YMCA memberships now can get a little Y action going. Um, and we really want our Ys to be a place for children, youth, and their families, or for, you know, adults, youth, and their families. We want elders to be able to come by and be able, you know, be welcomed in. And I think in areas, especially D8, right, we've got the whole family there. We got generations to work with, and so kind of identifying how YMCA's can transform to meet the needs of our communities. Board Review is just one example, and it's a pilot. So as I'm seeing it evolve, I mean, it's looking like it's going to be a really wonderful thing. And being that you're down in D8, I love, maybe we can engage and exchange some ideas so that we get that inside perspective. But yeah, that's kind of how we're making some changes down there.
Okay, perfect. Well, that's one more, and I think I asked for everyone. If it's okay with you, we can have your contact information so we can keep in contact.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yes.
Well, that's all the questions I have. Again, muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Jesus.
All right. Thank you so much. I actually just had one question, and I know we have our brownout training to also move on to, but I just had one last question, if that's okay with you, David. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk to us today. We really do appreciate it, and for answering all our questions. It's awesome to have you here as a resource. I guess my question was, you know, we have these two groups, you could say, when you're looking at homelessness, right? We have like transition aged youth, and then we also have like opportunity youth, right? Do you see these groups as different groups in that you think that you need different approaches when you're you know, trying to create reform, or like, you know, trying to help out these individuals? Do you see that there's a need for different approaches, or do you kind of see them as one group? I just wanted to kind of hear your insights on that.
Yeah, I mean, great question. I see them as one group, but I see opportunity youth definitely fitting in with transition age youth, and then I think there's subpopulations within opportunity youth. I think I mean, our system, we love to try to kind of just lump everybody together, but I think within opportunity youth there are regional differences with opportunity youth. There are cultural differences. So as much as we can break them out as possible, and also I think taking into account the interests of opportunity youth. I know that we there's this ideology for some reason in systems that all people want to move in one direction. So a lot of times I've seen opportunity youth get filtered into like higher education, but I'm sort of trying to break that out and include things like entrepreneurship and, you know, these different sort of concepts. But yeah, I kind of see them as one group, but also different when it comes to the subpopulations with that group. I hope that answers
Absolutely.
your question.
No, it did. Thank you so much. And like I said, we would love to talk to you, and I'm sure that this is an ongoing discussion that we would like to continue, right? This is not a one-time, one and done sort of thing. So we look forward to staying in touch with you and working together, hopefully, on projects. And you know, one of the things the commission wants to do is create subcommittees on the various issues that we're targeting, and I'm sure homelessness is going to be one of them. And it looks like Commissioner Jesus is very passionate about it. And I'm sure we can gather a group of commissioners to spearhead that effort and to work closely with the YMCA organization. So again, really look forward to working more closely with you um, as we go. So again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Madam Chair and Commissioners. All the info will be distributed, and I'll be talking to y'all soon. Thanks for having me, y'all. See ya.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, y'all. Peace.
All right. So we will be moving on to our next informational item, which is the Brown Act training. Unfortunately, we will not be proceeding on our action items today just because we don't have a quorum. So we'll just push it over to next month's agenda, so no problem there. So after we finish our Brown Act training, we'll be concluding the meeting. All right, so with that, I'd like to hand it over to Heather from the City Attorney's Office.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm Heather Ferbert. I'm a Chief Deputy City Attorney in the San Diego City Attorney's Office. It's very nice to meet you all tonight. I've worked for the city for 8 years now, and I've represented a bunch of different city departments, parks and recreation, real estate assets, special events, done all sorts of fun stuff with the city. And now I get to work directly with the council offices. We provide training and support on the Brown Act and other state laws to the council members. And so here we're here to provide it to you too, because every board and commission in the city of San Diego that was created by the city council is subject to the Brown Act. So it's really fascinating. I hope you'll enjoy the training. I'm going to try and keep it interesting. I know you'll probably have questions as I go. To get through everything, I would suggest putting your questions in the chat so you don't forget them. And then at the end, I'll go through and and then you can also ask me questions at the end. So if you want to jot it down or if you want to put it in the chat, I'll defer to you in the chair how you want to handle it. But, I will warn you, there is kind of a lot of information. The other thing is I will make sure that we get you the slides that I'm going to share so that you have the notes, so you don't have to worry about memorizing or remembering everything. You'll have the notes to look at later. And then you can always reach me through your city liaisons, through Chida or Ben. You can always get a hold of our office if you have more questions and things that come up. And we can always come back if there's another training that you think you need. If you want to talk about Roberts, because I didn't really incorporate much about Roberts rules into this training. So we can always follow up with that next time. So with that, I'm going to load my slideshow. So just give me a moment. Okay. Oh, how do I go back? Okay, there we go. So this is going to be an overview of the Ralph M. Brown Act, which is California's open meeting law. This is Marky Mark. He is going to make a debut through the entire presentation. This is my dog. And so he's going to help us learn the Brown Act tonight. The Brown Act is a state law that requires the meeting of all legislative bodies to be open and public. If you take away nothing from tonight besides open and public, I will win. That is great. Those are the two key buzzwords of the Brown Act. Open and public is the name of the game when we're talking about public meetings for city boards and commissions. The Brown Act was adopted to address concerns about the government taking action behind closed doors. If you ever watch any of those old movies where all the people are behind the closed door saying, we should raise taxes. Yeah, let's raise taxes. And then they come out, we've raised taxes. People really hated that. So the state said, let's change that and make sure the public can participate in all the meetings. So the premise is that the public agencies are created to serve the public and that the work they do should be open to the public. The public should be able to get to see the decisions being made, and the public should be able to participate in those decisions. The Brown Act offers basic rules for public access to make sure that we achieve that open and public standard. So meetings have to be open to the public. We have to have an agenda, which you have. It has to be available to the public in advance, posted on the city's website. When we met in person, they have to be posted physically where you're going to meet. And so if we start meeting in person again, that will change. And then, as you already know, probably only noticed items can be discussed. So you can't talk about things that aren't on your agenda. There are some limited exceptions to the Brown Act. We call them closed session exceptions. They're very limited. Most boards and commissions don't have authority to meet on the topics that are discussed in closed session. The best examples of closed session are personnel evaluation. So if the city wanted to have like a professional performance evaluation of the city clerk, that would happen in a closed session for employment and personnel and privacy issues. The other big exception is litigation, right? We don't want to have an open meeting talking about our litigation strategy, about how the city is going to win or lose and how much we might want to settle a case for, because that would just really hurt our position in litigation. So there's certain narrow exceptions. I'm not going to spend any more time really on closed session because it doesn't apply to the Youth Commission. But if there's a question that comes up in the future, we're always happy to help. The Brown Act prohibits secret ballots, so you should always vote openly, either by the hand raising, a voice vote, some other method, something that the public can see who's voting and who's voting which way. And then again, open and public is the name of the game. So when the courts look at these, the rules are interpreted in favor of public access. So you might ask, why does the Youth Commission have to hear this training? Because you are subject to the Brown Act. Like I said, every board and commission that's created by the city council is subject to the Brown Act. Youth Commission was created. Here's your ordinance number. I think you probably have seen it, but if you want to go look it up, you can find it on the city's website with the municipal code. Also happy to put that link in the chat later if you'd like. I also can't see the chat right now, so if you're typing your questions, very great. I just will look at them in a little while. So here's another introduction to Marky Mark. So subcommittees, I thought this might come up, and I heard the chair mention that you're making subcommittees. So subcommittees sometimes are subject to the Brown Act, but the way the Youth Commission is authorized to make subcommittees, your subcommittees will not be subject to the Brown Act. There is an exception in the Brown Act that talks about committees that are made up of less than a quorum, that are advisory only. Those subcommittees are not subject to the Brown Act. So your commission can make subcommittees for an in-depth review of issues of interest to the commission. That's the language in your municipal code. So as long as you're following those criteria and you have less than a quorum in your committees, then you should be in good shape to just meet. That said, if you want to have your meetings in public, I don't think the Brown Act would ever frown on more public access. So that's also possible, and we can always talk about that. So everyone knows a quorum is made up of a majority of the number of members that are supposed to be on the board, not the number of members who are appointed to the board. We get that question a lot. Your municipal code says there are 20 members, so a quorum of this body would be 11. So just so you know, going forward. All right, so let's talk about what is a meeting. Because it's a state law, there's lots and lots of definitions of a meeting. But the short story is, a meeting is any time a majority of the members of the Youth Commission get together to hear, discuss, deliberate, or take action on something that's within your subject matter jurisdiction. I'm going to talk about subject matter jurisdiction a lot. That's the area that your board can take action. So that's what's established in your municipal code that created the Youth Commission. And that is fairly broad. It talks about any critical issues affecting youth in the city of San Diego. So anything that would be within that purview would be considered the subject matter jurisdiction of your board. A meeting doesn't necessarily have to happen like this. It can be by email. It can happen over social media. It can happen at a public function. So we'll go through a lot of those other kinds of meetings. It doesn't have to be formal for a violation of the Brown Act to happen. So for the next couple of slides, we're going to go through some possible scenarios, and we're going to use a scenario. So my example is that the Youth Commission wants to vote that Marky Mark is a good boy. So here's examples of two types of serial meetings. And I want to talk about serial meetings because this is the easiest way that commissions can get tripped up on the Brown Act. So in a hub and spoke style of serial meeting, you have one commissioner who starts to talk to other commissioners. So Commissioner A talks to Commissioner B and says, I think we should vote Marky Mark as a good boy. And then Commissioner A goes to Commissioner B, Commissioner C. Then Commissioner A goes to Commissioner D, and then Commissioner A goes to Commissioner E. And each time Commissioner A starts saying, we should vote that Marky Mark is a good boy. And the commissioner that they're talking to says, yeah, I agree. We should definitely vote that Marky Mark is a good boy. And when you get a majority of the commissioners forming a collective opinion, even though it's only happening through one commissioner, that one commissioner now knows that there are 12 commissioners who are going to vote that Marky Mark is a good boy, and you have what we call collective concurrence. You have that group decision to vote in one way that's now happened outside of a public meeting. So that's the hub and spoke concept. The daisy chain concept is, well, before I move on, the hub and spoke The other way this can become a problem is if you're using an intermediary. So the middle spoke doesn't need to be a commissioner. It could be a member of the public, or it could be a staff member. So when you're speaking to staff members and members of the public, just make sure that you're not talking about what other commissioners might be wanting if there's a vote, for example. So if you're all voting whether or not Marky Mark is a good boy, and maybe, you know, I'm now lobbying you and I'm going to Commissioner A, I'm a member of the public, I want to vote for Marky Mark being a good boy. Commissioner A, I think you should vote that way. And Commissioner A tells me, yeah, I agree. And so on and so forth. That can still create that collective concurrence in that decision. The other example is a daisy chain. So you have one commissioner talk to another commissioner, who talks to a third commissioner, who talks to a fourth commissioner and a fifth commissioner until you get to that majority. And once you do, if they're talking about something within their subject matter jurisdiction, you've created a meeting and collective concurrence there. So that's serial meetings. I hope I'm not going too fast. I'm going to check the chat really quick. Oops, I'm going to go back. There's one. Please tell me. Okay, a good boy is kind of confused. No, that's fair. An example that would be better would be you're voting to appoint somebody to chair a committee, and that committee chair starts talking to all the other commissioners about being appointed. That's a more real world example. I usually use really absurd examples because then I, can't get in trouble with like divulging something, or getting or upsetting somebody. I try not to upset people, so I use my dog generally because most people either like or don't like dogs, but can understand a dog. But yeah, the example would be like a commission appointment, or if you were asked by the council to weigh in on the budget. And they want to know whether the youth commission supports the budget. And now you're talking about a yes or no vote on the support of a budget or an item on the budget that has to do with youth. Maybe it's that new department that the council member mentioned earlier tonight. He wants your opinion on that. And if the body is acting together, because remember, as commissioners, no one commissioner can speak for the commission by themselves. The commission speaks as a body, as a group, and you need a majority of you to agree on what the commission says as a whole. So if somebody comes and asks you for support for something, then the commission as a whole needs to vote for that. And that means the majority of you agree. So those are the kinds of questions that you could get where you could run into issues with this. Okay, I see some chats. Okay. So I saw another question, but I'm gonna move into social media and email because I have a feeling, because it's youth commission, this might be of interest to you all. So you can create serial meetings through email and social media. So the biggest thing is don't use reply to all in emails. If you're emailing with your staff liaisons, you can just email your staff liaison. Do not email all the other commissioners. So it's better practice to just reply back and use them as an intermediary. Even if you're scheduling meetings, the better practice would be to just, yes, I can attend, to the people who are asking. The Brown Act doesn't have an issue with procedural conversation. So obviously if you're trying to schedule a meeting and you're going through the chair, that's fine. As long as you're not talking about, and we're gonna vote this way, right? So make sure you're not taking that added step. If you're going to, so let me get back to my notes on social media. So on social media posts, there's a couple of different rules and they're all relatively new. One of the rules applies to public accounts. So if you have a public account as a youth commissioner that you're sharing, then that account must be open and accessible to the public, free of charge, and not require approval for participation from the social media site or a third party. So examples of things that would be okay would be a public Facebook page or a public Instagram page. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Nextdoor or a private Facebook group. Those would both be examples that require approval to join and are not considered open and accessible. So those would not be appropriate platforms for public youth commission pages if you wanted to do that kind of social media outreach. If you do youth commission related public social media outreach, don't like each other's posts, because you can create collective concurrence. The state has said this. You can create collective concurrence by liking each other's posts. Because if one of you posts on your public facing social media page that you support Commissioner A as chair of the Transportation Committee subcommittee, and 7 of you like that, or I'm sorry, 10 of you like that, now you have a majority who have at least publicly expressed support outside of a public meeting. So just don't like them. Don't, it's not rude. It's the law. So nobody will take it personally if you don't like your public facing social media pages, posts about Youth Commission. By contrast, oh, and the other thing is if you can't like it, please don't respond to it, right? Obviously. So like, don't even take it the next step. Please, please, please don't say, well, I disagree and I think this, that, and the next thing. And then that person gets, 12 likes from other commissioners. So just don't comment, just say, oh, that's very nice in your head, and then move on to the next post. So that's how we deal with public Facebook pages. Your own personal accounts, your private social media pages, just don't discuss Youth Commission stuff. Don't discuss Youth Commission business and you'll be fine. Don't like the post that says that, if you see the public one and you follow the public one, that's fine. But just don't like them, that posts that are posted there. And then don't use your personal page for Youth Commission business. So just keep them separate. If you want to do it, just keep them separate. And that's the best way to go about keeping out of trouble. That said, if you're friends already on like Instagram or whatever, there's no prohibition on liking or commenting on other commissioners' personal or private posts. So if one of you posts, I aced a test, I got a dog, I had a great burrito, whatever you want. Sorry, I'm hungry. It's dinner time. That's all fine, right? That's completely outside. That's not within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Youth Commission. It's not going to get you in trouble. So like away, be socially friendly, and handle your personal private stuff as you would in your normal personal private life. So that's all fine. The Brown Act doesn't touch that. The only other thing is if you do end up creating a public account, a public facing account again, be very careful about blocking people from it. If you think that you want to make a public page and you do, and then you think you want to block somebody for it, reach out to Ben to talk to me or someone in my office, because there's a lot of rules about blocking. Because what happens is when we create public Facebook pages, we create a First Amendment speech forum, because when the government makes a space for people to speak, then that is accessible to everyone. And so just like non-agenda public comment is a First Amendment space for people to say what they want to say, your public facing social media pages that are a Youth Commission based public space that is designed to be that official public space becomes that similar type of forum. And so there's rules that apply. So if you have, I don't know if you follow any of the council members' public social media pages, they have the same rules. And so you'll notice that hopefully they're following the rules and not liking each other's posts. But they have to let all the comments are there. So if the public comment is nasty, it's there. So there are certain exceptions. I don't want to spend the time to go into them because I don't know how much they will apply, but if there's questions, we can always follow up with that person, that commissioner later. Okay. So what is not a meeting? The other thing is, I don't want you to feel like you can't do things together. There are certain exceptions to the Brown Act's definition of a meeting. Here's the list. I'll highlight a few because I think they might come up more. Individual conversations. If you wanted to follow up with our last speaker, you can do that. You can have individual conversations with each other one-on-one, and you can have individual conversations with members of the public in your capacity as youth commissioner. The Brown Act doesn't regulate that. Just don't create a serial meeting by then having that person go to a bunch of your colleagues. Open meetings of another legislative body. So this applies to any legislative body as long as it's a regular noticed open meeting. So if you want to go to a city council meeting and there's 12 of you who want to go because they're discussing, the new youth department's budget, for example, and that's a matter of interest that you might want to go participate in, you can do that. Just don't sit in the audience and say, hey, at our next youth commission meeting, we really should vote for, Commissioner B to be the chair of the new transportation committee. Just don't talk about that stuff when you're together outside of a meeting. You sing a theme, right? And then social ceremonial events. If you get invited to a city like groundbreaking for a park, or you get invited to, you know, other kind of social events or ceremonial events, again, more than a majority of you can go. Just don't talk about youth commission stuff and you'll be fine. So that's the big takeaway. Again, open public participation in the dialogue of the business of the commission is really what's key here. All right, what's next? Contacts with the public. Okay, so then the other piece that the Brown Act protects is making sure the public has access. So this next part, I'm going to talk about what the public's rights are and how we work as a city and as a commission to make sure that the public has that access. So the public has a right to see your agenda, and the public has a right to the materials that you get. So when I give you this slide presentation, I'm also going to ask Ben to post it on your website so that all of you get it with the public at the same exact time, because that's what the Brown Act requires. You know, the other thing is, yeah, if an individual starts talking to a majority of you, you really ought to have a meeting and talk about it. If you have something in doubt and you're not sure if you're starting to get enough like critical mass of commissioners talking to somebody about something of interest to the commission, just put it on the agenda and have the conversation in a meeting, and then you avoid any risk and doubt. Okay. Here's more details on your meetings and agendas. And then the public has the right to attend. When you're in person, we can't require sign-ins. We can't require them to give their name. You'll see sometimes at council meetings, we get people calling anonymously and they get called by their last 4 digits of their phone number. And that's fine. The Brown Act prohibits us from asking people who they are and whether and calling in and registering to speak. You know, the agenda has to provide a general description of the items that you're going to talk about. That helps the public know. One of the common ways that boards, commissions in the city get tripped up is if you notice something like, we're going to talk about dog parks, and then all of a sudden the council is talking about dog parks, and then somebody gets off on a tangent talking about we really need more like cat daycare centers. Not noticed, right? Now we're off in left field. And there might have been members of the public who wanted to call and talk about the city spending money on cat daycares. And that would be a potential Brown Act violation. So we need to make sure that the things that we're talking about are what's on the agenda. So as long as you're staying within that general description of what your topic is, you're in good shape. So like looking at your agenda, your appointment to vice chair on municipal code revision subcommittee, that's appropriate. And you can talk about that subcommittee and that chair and the role of the chair, but you shouldn't talk about another subcommittee, right? So that's the general idea. Okay, I think I've covered all of that. Here's the different types of public comment. You already heard your non-agenda public comment. They can talk about anything that's within your subject matter jurisdiction. Speakers have to have the right to talk on every agenda item, including information items. There are provisions to include time limits if it becomes problematic. So you can reach out to us if you want to address that, if you start to have problems. The other thing is, like I said, since it's a First Amendment forum, you have to listen to people complain. And I'm sure the council members could tell you lots of stories about lots of people calling in with different positions that, you know, we may or may not want to hear. And then public participation. Sometimes in non-agenda public comment, people will raise topics that are relevant to your commission, but aren't on your agenda. And you'll want to talk about them because that person is calling and they're passionate. You can't because it's not noticed, right? It's not on the agenda. So I wanted to provide you some options instead. You can ask for clarification from the speaker. You can also ask that it be placed on your next month's agenda. So that's a good way. It's always a good tool. If you want to talk about something that comes up that way, you can have it noticed. The other thing is when you vote on an action, you need to report out what the vote is. So if you can say unanimous. I have some examples. Let me get to them. So for example, the commission agrees to appoint a certain commissioner as a subcommittee chair. It's adopted unanimously. So you can just say that motion passes unanimously. But if the vote is different, say it passes like 15-3, you would say that vote passes 15-3 with the following commissioners voting no. And then you'd list the 3 commissioners voting no. You don't have to read off all of you who voted yes, but you do need to identify who said no and who abstained so that the public knows who voted which way, right? And you can make one the yes or the majority, whatever the biggest one is, you can make that the one that's assumed. So vice versa, if something fails and you have a majority of no votes, you can say that motion fails with commissioners A, B, C, and D voting yes, and Commissioner E abstaining, for example. So there's a couple of different ways to do that, you know, and we can work with you if you want to talk about that more. The public has a right to view everything that you get as a commissioner at the same time as you get it. And then this is probably more relevant when we are in person, but the public has the right to take photos and record the meeting. So if somebody comes in and starts doing that, the city has to let them. And then there are violations. I don't want to make anybody nervous. The Brown Act provides that if you want to sue the city for a Brown Act violation, you have to give the city the chance to fix it. So as long as the violation was an innocent act, you know, an innocent error, it's not a big deal. We can fix it. We just rehear it. We re-notice it. We re-vote on it. We just do it over. If you actively and intentionally attend a meeting in violation of the Brown Act, like you like nefariously, you're like, I'm gonna forget it. This Brown Act is super dumb, and let's all meet at the coffee shop, and we're just gonna go vote on a bunch of stuff. You know, if there's intent, there could be criminal penalties. I can't remember the last time I've seen somebody have this happen, but it's there, so you should know. But you'll be fine. Just open in public, right? So I wanted to put some practice pointers. Hopefully you don't feel like Marky Mark does now after all of this information. And then again, I'll give you all the slides so that you can follow up with these. And then a summary, again, open in public. Take your discussions, actions, deliberations in public meetings. Let the public participate. And when in doubt, err on the side of open and public. And then there's a couple of different resources if you want more information, in case I haven't bored you to death and you want some good reading material, you could go read the Brown Act itself. It's dry and dense. This open in public is actually, this first link is a really good tool for anyone who wants more information on that. So I always recommend that one to anybody who's curious. So with that, I'm gonna stop my screen share and I'll take a look at the chat. Okay. How would this be helpful when sending emails to constituents? When you're sending emails to constituents, it's just don't send them to your other commissioners and you won't really be at risk of creating a serial meeting. So it should be fine to just send, you know, we're having a youth commission meeting. We're super excited. We'd love for the public to participate. Here's what we're voting on. You know, that's all fine. If you're spreading the word, usually fine. Just don't copy your commissioners. Just send it to your public email list, whatever email list you're using. All right, with that, Chair, I'll leave it back to you.
It looks like Commissioner Don had a question, so I'd like to, Commissioner Don, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I thank you also for coming out and doing this training for us. I did have a question regarding public comment. Like, what are the procedures for the chair or commissioners when it comes to public comment criticisms that include like racial slurs, homophobic or sexist slurs? Like, what is that procedure? What is the extent? How far can criticism go?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. And unfortunately, it's one we're seeing more. I'm not sure if you heard about some of the pretty nasty comments that were made at the county level kind of during COVID, especially directed at the public health. I think she is, what is her title? The public health director or chief public health officer. So generally we have to let criticism happen. If it's becoming abusive, we have advice and procedures. And what I can do, what I think would be the best would be that I equip your staff liaisons with that to help you through that. And your chair, and I can work with you all. Trying to find my notes as to what it was specifically. generally we have to allow the comments. That said, that doesn't mean, I've seen it handled really elegantly by some council members and others who are sitting there and having to listen to it, coming during their own comments of like, we don't accept that language and behavior, and it's really unfortunate that that's what's happening, like kind of rising above it. So that's a tool you can use, and I've seen it happen before. You know, let me think about some other tools and I can share those, hopefully. But you're right to point it out, because unfortunately it is possible that it would happen. I would hope that people would not call in to your meeting and do that, but it does happen. I don't have those notes handy, but I can definitely follow up on some of the details on when. Usually the limitation on like cutting people off is based on like actual threats of violence. It's a pretty high, unfortunately, a pretty high standard under the law, because the government has created this forum for people to speak. So, you know, if it's racial slurs, I think let's talk about it. If you start having that problem, definitely reach out right away if you start having that problem. And, you know, Ben has my cell phone number now. So if you're even seeing that during a meeting, just call me and let's walk through it and see what we can do. Because I don't think you should be subject to that, but to some extent, you might have to be. Again, I'm hopeful that people will proceed with decorum and appropriate judgment in these meetings.
Yes, I definitely agree on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your answer, Heather, and for your question, Commissioner Dunn. Commissioner Jesus?
Thank you. Just a good question, and you probably touched upon this, but I would like to just say like a clear yes or no to have like it clear in my mind. Can we, as commissioners, talk to, for example, District 8, I can talk to Commissioner Rendon about stuff that we would like to bring up, not specifically like how we're gonna vote, but there's noticed this in the community and we want to bring it up. Can we do that?
Can I have you start? I'm having a hard time with the microphone. I'm making out the question and I want to make sure I get it.
Is that better maybe?
Do you want to try again?
Yes, no, maybe so.
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Can, like, for example, like a scenario, like I'm District 8, I want to talk to the other commissioner from District 8 about some stuff. We don't want to vote specifically on anything or like share that kind of information, but we just want to like talk and see what other areas of the community have need, I don't know, attention. We can do that?
Yeah, you can talk to a few of your colleagues on the commission. Just don't make sure it's less than 11 of you. So how many commissioners are from District 8?
2. It's 2 per district.
Yeah, you can absolutely talk to your colleague from District 8 and not have any problem. It's just when you start to get to a majority of your membership where the problems occur.
Okay, and same thing when it comes to like the chair or vice chair, right?
You can talk to the chair and vice chair about what you want on the agenda and those types of matters. Yes, and then as vice chair and chair, you also want to be cautious that you're not also creating yourself as a hub, right? And sharing what other commissioners are saying. So yeah, you can do that as well, because that would be a conversation between you and one other commissioner.
Okay.
And even if it was like both of you from District 8 and the chair, that's still only 3, so you're in good shape.
Okay, perfect. And okay, yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, thank you so much. Your presentation was super comprehensive and informative. I know there's a lot of nuances when it comes to the Brown Act, but you made it super easy with your examples, easy to follow. And I'm sure it takes a couple iterations, and I'm glad that we'll have access to the presentation for us to look over. So super, so just thanks for dropping in and really walking us through that whole all the nuances and explaining everything in detail. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right. So as I had mentioned earlier, we'll be moving our action items to our next meeting when we have a quorum. But just one last closing announcement, super important before we end off today. So you guys all know how instrumental Stephanie has been for the Youth Commission, like literally since day one. She's worked tirelessly to promote the commission, get the word out to the community about our mission, about our goals, and there's a lot of work that occurs behind the scenes just to keep the commission running, right? A lot of communication, coordinations with logistics and everything. And I can say with 100% certainty that we've benefited from having Stephanie as such an amazing and strong support system. And she is moving on to some more amazing, great opportunities. But we just wanted to say on behalf of all of us that we're really, really gonna miss having you here. But again, I wish you the best of luck in your future pursuits. I'm sure you're gonna kill it wherever you're gonna go, not just in this next opportunity, but also just beyond that. And again, thank you so much for everything that you've done for us. And like again, we really, really do appreciate your efforts and your support. So, Stephanie, if you have anything to.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, y'all, I had to go get my ashes, so I have like my my forehead's like a little bit funny, but yes, I'll be taking a position in Sacramento at a Latino-owned lobbying firm. So I'm really excited to move on to that space. Some of the work that I'll be doing is I'll be working on Cal Grant reform. So as you all know, we have a lot of different systems that provide funding directly to students. We have the Cal Grant system, financial aid system, DACA. So all that stuff is like my passion area. And so I'll be working on statewide legislation and working with some of the CSU UC sectors to just ensure that we're getting our rightful pot of funding on those areas, but also how do we streamline these type of systems so that they're put in the hands of underserved non-traditional students. And so I'm super excited, but I'm really sad because we just started this up and you were doing amazing things. I think we're going to have someone come in from the mayor's office and also be counterpart to Ben. So you will still have access to the mayor's office. Chida will be here in the interim until we get another youth education liaison, which is what I've kind of really been doing. But really just want to make sure that you all are empowered to continue moving forward in this space, and knowing that not only are you all bringing in representation from your specific districts, but your experiences. And don't be afraid to ask questions. And I think this meeting has been very education background in terms, how does this be working? But once you all really start getting the rhythm of things, there's going to be a lot of momentum. And I think the last thing that I'd even just add is I'm going to continue doing work in the youth space at a more statewide level. Anyone who is interested, please stay connected with me. I'll drop in my personal email as well. As part of my kind of involvements aside from the mayor's office, I'm part of the Young Leaders Advisory Council through California Forward. And now I'm just kind of not being a young person anymore. So I'm leaving that. But this is our kind of like a Young Leaders Advisory Council statewide, and we have representation from across the state, and one being them in San Diego. So there's always opportunities to apply to that as I'm departing and stuff like that. So and then staying involved in some of the youth-led work that's going on across the state, which I'm super excited. So stay connected with me. We'll make sure that I'm having folks, I'm briefing kind of my next person into this role, so they'll know that we're going to continue working on the youth town hall and stuff like that as we move forward. So thank you all so much. And I know it's bittersweet, but we're going to stay connected. So thank you all.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, I think that is pretty much our meeting for today. So like I said, we'll definitely make sure to get to the action items in next month's meeting. So we'll make a point to get that done. So again, thank you everyone for making it to today's meeting. We really appreciate your involvement. and your participation. And again, thank you, Stephanie, for coming in and again, we really appreciate your work and thanks for giving us an update and being there for us all this time. Is there anything else? 1 second. All right, so let's go ahead and close the meeting. So I move to adjourn this meeting at 7:54 p.m.
Second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Dax. All right. You guys are good to go. Thank you for coming. See you guys later.